All right, you
All
ready?
right, here we go. Woo-hoo. All right, I am Darcy, back with you for Quality Matters. I'm here with Kyle.
Yes.
And we have a special guest from our ASQ conference. I'm not going to try to say your name, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Good morning, I'm Fabrice Bouchereau.
Okay, that's him.
Call me Fab.
Fab, that's what I was going to say. All right, so it says you are a project engineer. Oh man, Kyle, you told me what all these stood for. Now I can't remember.
Professional engineer,
Professional
project
engineer.
management pro, Six Sigma black belt.
Okay, so I have said this on the podcast, but Fab, you don't know. I was pulled into quality about a year ago by Kyle. We're husband-wife duo, so I don't know a whole lot about this. My job is to help everyone listening to understand it. So I don't know what your acronyms mean.
When I get a little too geeky, she'll pull me back.
Great.
That's
All
how
right.
it works.
Now, in a nutshell, I have all these acronyms behind me, but at the end of the day, my biggest role is as a facilitator, helping people do the same job that you're doing, helping people understand what the quality tools are about and how to use them. And one of the things that I've noticed is there are tons of books. There's 1 million hours of information on how to use tools, what the tools do, and what you should expect to get from them. But very little effort is put on teaching people how to facilitate using the tools. And quality is definitely a team sport.
Yes.
And
Wait, it's not just the one guy that gets given the job and no resources?
no, that's the guy that gets laid off.
Oh, okay.
Because he had no resources and nobody else was helping him out.
No, but it definitely you need your entire team. And therefore I find that it's very, very important to develop good facilitation skills. Learn how to interact with people, learn how to communicate with people.
Seems we heard this earlier today from
We've
someone
talked
else.
about this with a few people. But what I found interesting, okay, so Fab was speaking earlier and we went to his breakout session.
It was good.
And at the end, Kyle asked a question about job shops versus...
Like traditional manufacturing, and because give us just a little, if you can, a brief rundown of what your breakout meeting was.
Yeah, just for the benefit of everybody. The presentation today was about how do we apply SMED, single minute exchange of die, which is a methodology to reduce the amount of time it takes to do a setup beyond the manufacturing floor.
Right.
You know, how to apply it to the service industry, everything from nursing to taxes. But in order to be able to really misapply or modify how we use the tool, we need to understand how it was fundamentally developed and what problem it was trying to solve. And that's why I brought in Cal's question. Cal was asking, this tool seems like it would be great if you have a process that's already established, you already know what the steps are and everybody's following them, and this regular rhythm that you will be able to make the improvements. What happens if you work in an environment where it's a job shop, where pretty much every order that comes, the person needs to tailor make it.
Yes,
make
it's
it
unique,
order.
it's customized. Yeah, there you go, made to order.
And what I was mentioning to Kyle is, on a certain aspect, it might be easier to do it in a job shop. And let me elaborate on that. It's easier to do it in a job shop, I think, because if you work in a job shop where every day you have to change the way you work in order to adapt and make a new product, you tend to have a more nimble mentality. You're used to change. It's part of your life. Versus somebody that has been making the same widget for the last 30 years, and you come out of nowhere and trying to tell the person, I think you can do this better, and the person in their mind is thinking, you don't even know what I do.
Yeah.
So if you look at it from the perspective, the tools are not meant to necessarily be used in their entirety. If you use the tools to try to elevate your mindset, try to change your perspective, a lot of those tools have you asking a lot of questions. And the questions are not only for you to understand what's going on, but if you're very skilled and you take the time, you might help the person that's been doing the same process for the last 30 years or doing it differently every day, look at it from a different angle. And that's all we need. We need the person to look at the process from a different angle, and with the 30 years of experience, they will find the solution. And at that point, I have to facilitate in the other direction and get upper management or quality control or whoever has to manage that change get a little bit more of their buy-in.
Well, I like what you said about using that person and their 30 years of experience. If you can get them on board, they have all those years of experience to share, like, here's where I've had problems, here's where I've met difficulties, and man, it would be great if we could do it this way.
Right.
And very often, those people have been frustrated. They have known how to fix this. And they feel like they did not get heard.
No, and they just chose to be quiet 5 years ago.
And they just chose to be quiet, or every time you try to bring something up, it gets shut down. If you just think about the money argument, how many times, I'll just take something simple that's out of manufacturing. 2 screens. 10 years ago, I was like, wow, I would really like to have 2 screens because I can probably be looking at my Word document and creating my PowerPoint.
Right.
And my boss was, no.
Yeah.
Not, and I kept thinking, well, I have to go back and forth.
Yep.
I keep forgetting. And I did not have the means to show the value of that. And we have a lot of operators, a lot of people up and down everywhere in our industries that are probably suffering from the same type of problem.
Yeah.
And that's where I think Lean helps us find a way to repackage what they've already been trying to say. And when we look at what we did today with identifying what's a process that can only be done when a machine is turned off
Right.
versus when a machine is turned on, it helps people look at it from a different perspective. I've always done it this way. You're not asking me to change it.
Right.
You're just asking to do it in a different order.
Yeah.
Well, I like one thing you said, but first I'll kind of preface it with, a lot of folks, when they hear Lean or they hear Six Sigma, those are dirty words.
Yes.
Those have become, an almost more dirty word than ISO in a lot of industries. So I like the way you put one thing, is because you said it's important to use the tool, but you basically you have to know where it does and does not apply.
Yes.
And that's one thing that I have seen folks implementing these solutions struggle with. It is they try to apply it to the fullest in every nook and cranny and every aspect, and it just doesn't work. That's where my question came from.
You have definitely touched one of the arguments I'm most passionate about. I started with Six Sigma, and it was interesting how you took your course, you got your green belt course, and you had to do 2 green belt projects to demonstrate that you mastered the tools and you got your certification. Repeat same thing for the black belt. The problem that I found, and I've been involved with Six Sigma projects where I went from being the student to the instructor, at least in 7 or 8 organizations, and they all make the same mistake. They cannot get beyond what I've come to call the certification project.
I
where we
love it.
completely forget that our goal is to improve the process.
Not to run your process.
Not exactly. And what I've noticed is they found the solution and they will say, okay, what tool could have I used? And they'll do the project backwards just so they can have the documentation.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of what happened with Six Sigma, in addition to the statistics being difficult, is that people kept doing certification type projects.
I like that term.
Instead of just going, okay, I've learned these tools, I understand. At first, I will do a project to demonstrate I use all the tools.
Right.
But now in my daily work, it is okay for me to do just a stakeholder analysis because I want to know who this is going to impact. I don't need to go do a regression analysis. I don't even have a process. I don't even know what's going to vary.
Yeah.
And I
That's
think
what I've seen kill folks, is because they're so overwhelmed by the end of it, and you're fixing sometimes small problems, and you have gobs and gobs of documentation.
I will tell you, I have learned a lot when I moved to LA to work in pharmaceuticals.
Okay.
And they told me, we're going to do a 4-hour Kaizen.
Really?
Yeah, until then I only had done 4 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
Well, let's give a lot of folks probably don't know what Kaizen is.
Okay.
So
I
give me a
assume
brief.
it's related to Six Sigma.
It is.
Okay.
A Kaizen is a short event by which you look at a process, you take it apart, and you put it back hopefully better.
Okay.
You're trying, it's supposed to be very quickly.
Like a localized improvement
A
project.
localized
Right.
improvement
Okay.
traditionally has been done in 4 or 5 days.
Right.
In general, you would have an instructor called a sensei, come from Japan or from some other countries, and they would fly in and would, in order to get the most out of their time, I think most events were held from Monday to Friday. Friday being where you do the big reveal of what
Yep.
you've done, and you try to minimize having a laundry list of things to do. And that became the standard, was 4 to 5 days. In Cali, what those guys started doing is realizing we want people to have a full cycle of learning very quickly. And we would start, so they said, what do we need to do? Let's define the problem. You know, we're going to measure it, we're going to analyze, we're going to improve it. We can do a small project
Right.
very quickly so you go through this entire process.
I love it.
As you get more experience,
love it.
then you can do a Kazan that takes 1 day. Then they had the 4 days.
Yep.
And now we're all the way back with katas, which is basically tri-storming, documented, where almost with no training. I mean, we can go and improve something with almost no training just by learning how to observe. And that's what's changing. That's why Six Sigma has lost a lot of its appeal. Imagine if you're going to do a Six Sigma project, it takes 6 months for you to collect the data. The
Right.
reality may have changed completely.
Yep.
Can
Yeah.
you imagine doing that in your job shop? We were
Oh
talking
my
about
gosh,
earlier.
Yeah.
Versus with Flame, you go, you identify what's the waste, where can I make an improvement?
Yep.
I would love to say that I rely heavily on statistics. Not really.
Yeah.
Because most of the time we don't even have a process, we don't have a measurement system.
Right. What are you
just-
going to collect?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
takes so much time to get to know the business. I would say most of the work I've done in the last 3 years has focused on helping CEOs, directors, managers, plant directors understand what is the process they're looking at. Now, imagine if those people don't even know what the process is.
Yeah.
How are we going to eliminate
How are you gonna prove it?
variation
Yeah.
through Six Sigma?
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunity, and I aspire one day to work in a process that has been so improved that we have to use Six Sigma
To improve
in
it
order to
further.
find the next
Because
details.
that's was the original intent of Six Sigma. So you're going, 6 standard deviations, 3 and left, 3 and right, and you've got basically a 1.5 million chance.
Yep.
That's a lot of improvement that has to have already occurred to get there.
Yes, and that's where, that's why I really liked your question. Like, what tools do we use? How do we don't? It's very, very difficult.
No, I love it. And you were honestly the first person in this, your particular line of work that I've talked to that seemed to have a common sense approach to this.
I think a lot of people have been very invested in Six Sigma, and Six Sigma is, don't get me wrong, is an extremely robust methodology. I like the methodology. I just think we get stuck in certification projects.
I like the way you
really
word it.
think that we'll get stuck in those certification projects, and we need to do away with them.
Yeah.
And that's why you see a lot of companies, they just have idea fairs. They have competition with that. They don't necessarily have that format. And I think it's sticking to a format is what has caused us to have a lot of issues.
Well, that
it's
makes a lot of sense because though our work is somewhat similar, when I go do an audit, no two audits are remotely the same, but I have been audited by auditors where they have the exact same note trail form that they use for the last 20 customers, the exact same steps that they go through, and it is a miserable, not only experience, but results-wise, miserable
doesn't
audit.
You need to have some flexibility, and I think that's what goes back to the facilitation. Because a big part of facilitation is the ability to identify what needs to happen.
Yeah.
A lot of companies have failed, I think, between facilitation and another one that kills those project-based improvement initiative is project selection. Think about this. Most Six Sigma program will tell you to get your green belt, you need to come in the class with 2 projects in mind. You have no idea of Six Sigma. You
Right.
heard green belt, you don't know if it's martial arts or statistics. You have no idea.
Right.
You're still thinking, and you have to bring 2 projects. So the person, no matter how great they are or smart they are, the projects that they chose might not lend themselves to the learning experience they're supposed to have. That's why in my book, one of the things I focused on realizing that there are a lot of people that know statistics and Six Sigma way better than I do. What I'm going to do is create a project funnel for them. My entire book is focused on, let's look at a process and identify opportunities for improvement and quantify them and tie them back up to a key performance indicator, so that when you have...
You know if you improved or not.
Exactly.
So many people, I see, they have no idea how they're doing.
And what happens also, when you have 20 new students coming, you say, these are the projects we've already identified, and you can classify them as first-time project, second-time project, and that way the person gets the project that's appropriate to their level. The company has a way of knowing it improved because those projects are being done, and you have the whole satisfaction of having worked on something tangible.
Yeah. You know, I just can't help but think, you've talked about transportation in school districts. I'm just, you know, simple things like kids' bus routes. I mean, you know, how many times is the bus late, and how much faster and more efficiently could they take care of these kids? And we've witnessed firsthand a lot of waste and that goes into it. I just see so many applications of this way of thinking, because it's similar to what we do, but there's a key difference here, because you're more on that the individual smaller process, and you know, we're more of the top level. How do we link everything together? But I mean, just so many amazing applications.
And that's a great thing about it, those tools, and why it's important to have at first shorter learning cycles, is it's the same tools that are scaled up or down.
Yeah.
You know, I could sit down and we're looking at how we're gonna improve the setup of one production station.
Right.
And 6 months ago, I was figuring out how to merge one plant from Canada to a plant in the U.S. in China. It's the same tools. We're looking at what the processes need to be.
Yeah.
And you just add layers of complexity. And that's why when I mentor somebody, my goal is to start getting them to get wins and loses right away.
Right.
You start doing this, you develop the skills, because as you speak to more and more people, there are things you need to do that are slightly different. But if you didn't have it in a safer, smaller environment, you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing a project and it only affects the two of you. I know I need to talk to the two of you.
Right.
But if I'm going to do a project that affects my plant manager in China, in Canada, in Colorado, and Houston, it's a totally different dynamic.
Yeah.
And unless I've had one-on-one interactions with, for smaller projects, I might not think it's important to have the communication with them.
But this is
the
where
problem.
I'm enjoying talking to you, because again, you are truly the first person in this line of work, which I mean is a very high compliment, that is taking it down to, well, what do I just need to do for these people? Individualize it for the people and the process and the organization that you're working with.
And I must tell you, that mentality, it took my friend Liz she works in the medical, she does medical lean and continuous improvement. And for her, she has a very unique approach, and it's rubbing off a little bit on me. Everything is based on respect. If you think about it, who are we improving this? It comes down to question